list and just put it up on the wall. I don't know that it could have fallen into place any better for how it complements the defense that we do have in place already. I think it fits real seamlessly. There's lots of exciting options, I think, that the coaches can contemplate, and gives us in Dillon, he gives you obviously a massive body that can do a lot of things out there. It changes the complexion of and look of our defense. The hardness to play against, and so a real level of excitement there. We had hoped that he would have been a guy that was going to go to market last free agency, and was on the top of our list to target then, and then the opportunity to get Nate Schmidt, who just fits in so many different ways, and what he brings to this team, from a character, compete, talent, leadership standpoint is something that I'm really excited about. I had some great conversations, with him, before the trade, and then after the trade. It was one of the most exciting conversations I've had with a player in a long time. Just the level of excitement, the level of anticipation of getting started. It's almost one of those things where it brings you to the point where you'd like to get started tomorrow type thing.
We'll go back to Ken Wiebe for a follow-up. Go ahead, Ken.
Kevin, it seems like there's a pay-it-forward element when it comes to Paul Stastny. So Blake Wheeler calls him to help him convince him to waive. Now he's the guy who does that to Nate. What does that say about the process and what it means for your organization to have that kind of player be willing to waive and also help in the process of making that happen?
Well, first and foremost, it says a lot about Stas and a lot about Nate that they both want to win. They want to be in a situation where there's a chance to to do something great. And it's all fine and well to play with friends, but that's not necessarily the case here. Like they're friends certainly first, but they're competitors. They want to win, and it was abundantly clear in my conversations, with Nate that that's what he wants to do, and that's the most important thing for him at this point in time in his career, as it is for a lot of the players on our team at this point in time in their career. So I do think that it also gives a little bit of the perception isn't necessarily the reality. Like there's certainly going to be players out there that we're going to be on their no trade list, but one thing that I can say with great ease is that when they get here, it's different. And they see it's different, and I do think that some of the conversations maybe that those players have throughout the league, I think does help change that narrative. But these players, they earn the right to have no trades or whatever the situation may be, but again, I think the willingness to want to try to win outweighs that.
We'll go next to Scott Billeck from the Winnipeg Sun. Go ahead, Scott.
Thanks, Gregor. Good afternoon, Kevin. These days are the first day of free agency is often characterized by a lot of money going out, a lot of perceived or overpaying for guys. I guess my question is though, how important was it this year to do it through the trade market more so than kind of waiting today, going to war with bids and different things, and trying, like you just said to Kenny there, trying to attract guys here, when it is difficult at times?
Well, first and foremost, like the two guys that we got, I would put, unavailable in this signing market. And I guess by what I mean with that is what they bring to the table. There wasn't really guys that I could go and pick and choose to say, well, if I didn't have Dillon, I can get this guy to play like Dillon. If I didn't have Schmidt, I could get this guy to play like Schmidt. Like the elements, how they fit, how the two of them fit is just is so perfect, for our group. And you've heard me say that so many times when it comes to trades or when it comes to free agency, that there has to be a fit. And, it comes at a cost though, too. We've used up a lot of our cap space, so certainly, some of the directions that we might have had going into, today being the first, day of free agency, definitely were changed, by, the moves that we made. So there's plan A and plan B, and you're certainly operating off of a different plan than you were prior to making these trades. And it would have been different if we were only make one of those trades. So again, the fact that they both fell in, we've got some work to do ahead of us to round out our roster. But I really like the core of forwards that we had already. Obviously, love the Vezina winning goaltender in the back, and now the identity of our defense is probably going to be something that when teams come to play us, they're going to talk about that almost more than maybe even the rest of our group because of what the elements that it brings.
We'll go back to Scott Billeck for a follow-up. Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, and just kind of building on that, when it comes to forward, I mean, a couple depth moves today, but no, usually these days kind of been categorized by bringing a couple veterans or to fill out the fourth line and that sort of thing. Are you leaning now more towards kind of the youth taking over those positions, David Gustafsons, the Harkins, those guys, or where are we at with that?
Well, I think that's still a little bit of a work in progress. I still think there's some names on the board there that we do have a level of interest in, and we'll see how it all plays out. It will be largely a function of available discretionary dollars to spend. We have two key RFA deals that we need to get done, and that is. After the days of today, that's squarely the focus. With the job at hand is to get those in the books, and then take a deep breath and see if where you're at from there.
We'll go next to Mike McIntyre from the Winnipeg Free Press. Go ahead, Mike.
Thanks, Gregor. Afternoon, Kevin. You've used the term roster surgery in the past to talk about moves you've made or haven't made, and then subsequent sort of domino moves. Let's just say that this is the roster you go with. I mean, do you have to perform any kind of surgery to get cap compliant, or is this roster one that you envision you could get under the ceiling?
Well, again, we've got, I said two, I guess we have three, but, Logan Stanley's RFA is much, much simpler to work on because of the nature of his tenure. So, the other two, you're still in a little bit of, guessing game as to how it's all going to play out. So that'll be a major function of what we can and can't do, and what we may or may not have to do in getting those deals done.
Go next to Jeff Hamilton from the Free Press. Go ahead, Jeff.
Thanks, Gregor. Thanks for doing this, Kevin. On that line of those three RFAs, are you expecting them to take a while? Do you have an idea of? I mean, you mentioned Logan might be a little bit simpler, just given the context around that negotiation. Are you expecting Andrew and Neil to take a bit longer?
Well, the process starts to take place here now. Like there's a date where they'll have to file for arbitration and stuff like that. It's a formality, and those are the things that generally happen. Bang, bang, bang after the draft and free agency, and then you have those dates, and then so. But that is all compressed this summer. So even in that regard, the time frame of which that usually takes place is compressed. So we're hopeful that it doesn't, and we'll get to that in when we probably wake up tomorrow.
Go back to Jeff Hamilton for a follow-up. Go ahead, Jeff.
A follow-up on the time of opportunity here, with the sense of there's guys that, over the last couple of years, Paul's kind of used that word opportunity for a lot of guys that are able to seize. Now you got a pretty backloaded defensive group. When you look at guys like Ville Heinola, you look at guys like Dylan Samberg, where exactly do they fit into this when you have such a deep defensive group now on both sides?
Well, again, I think that there's going to be opportunity. There's going to be competition, certainly, at training camp, for the roster spots, and I think competition is good, and I don't know that means that again, what you see in its full form will be what you see at training camp. We'll see how that all plays out, but again, good young players that are going to be a big part of what we have going here, and again, having this opportunity to grab those two players that help the top end of our defense right now is certainly something that I think will actually help those players get into the lineup when they do. You'll have greater options to be able to play younger players with real sound defensive players, as opposed to guys that are all just trying to cut their teeth or play at the level that that they have to stay in the game.
We'll go next to Kelly Moore from 680 CJOB. Go ahead, Kelly.
Thank you, Gregor. Good afternoon, Kevin. Would you say what you've been able to do with the acquisition of those two defensemen in the last 24 to 48 hours, would that be the culmination of 2 years of trying to recover from Dustin Byfuglien's unexpected departure from the organization?
Yeah, so it was certainly, the unexpected departure was something that, had us reeling. And I'm real proud of, I guess the way that it was handled by our team, real proud of the way it was handled by our coaches. Again, we had to try to find quick fixes. We had to try to find, short-term, players to play kind of above, maybe what they should. And we found a way. We obviously found a way to stay in the, in the postseason for the last 2 years. But this is different. This gives you a top four that, again, is exciting. It gives you, the size element that we did, lose with Buff, and Schmidt gives you maybe the offensive flair element that you lost with Buff. So again, you can't totally replace Buff with one. He was a unique hockey player in that regard. But I think the combination of those two put those elements that we lost back in our lineup.
Go back to Kelly Moore for a follow-up. Go ahead, Kelly.
Yeah, just to follow up on the two trades, Kevin, often we've talked to you and you've said these deals are a culmination of 18 to 24 months of speaking or whatever, but because of the financial implications, were these deals that came together fairly quickly?
Yeah, because again, I think the Washington trade. I don't think they really ever wanted to trade Brenden Dillon, but they obviously were faced with a cap crunch, and that became a purely, I think, financial thing for him because he fit seamlessly like a glove in their organization as well. So I know that was hurtful for them in that regard, and even the Nate Schmidt one, because I think that. Vancouver was looking to go in different directions as well. So with respect to what they have to pay on the cap and, obviously allocation of money in that organization with two big RFAs is something that we know well about when we had to deal with it with our RFAs. So, it's an interesting time right now because, we're living in the flat cap world, but we added, $81.5 million of cap space in there because, you have Seattle that, can do some things. I think you've seen a tremendous amount more of buyouts this year that I think artificially, allows the cap, more money in the cap system because those teams can then respend it and their hits are spread out over a period of time. So, it was interesting to see, how some of these things unfolded. But in our situation, like I say, it really couldn't have fallen any better for us because I do believe that the acquisitions through trade, I don't think I could have touched that in the acquisitions by free agency.
We'll go next to Murat Atesh from The Athletic. Go ahead, Murat.
Thanks, Gregor. Hi, Kevin.
Hello.
Just following up on the Andrew Kopp and Neil Pionk situations, you mentioned that, there's some dates coming up and it would be perfectly normal for them to perhaps elect for arbitration. But that means, correct me if I'm wrong, that you can continue to negotiate all's well. Yeah. And then the second part of that is, we've really been framing the Andrew Kopp situation, given that he's 1 year away from UFA eligibility as like, okay, really got to avoid arbitration. Ideally, there'd be a long-term deal there, else, perhaps exploring a trade market. Is that a fair assessment that you would want him as, for as long-term of a possible and to avoid that hearing?
Well, we love both players, and certainly, again, if we can find a way to do term deals with both of them, that would be the ultimate goal. Where it sits right now, how it'll play out, I guess it all remains to be seen. But the cap is very real, and our contract situation, is very real. Like the good thing is we have our defense core is locked up and locked in, and but also that there's fixed costs there now. So there's a lot of the core is locked in, which is great, but there's fixed costs there now. So there's the reality that of what our cap is today and what it is going to be moving forward. And again, we're probably living in a flat cap environment again next year. So when you're doing future contracts, you have to take that into consideration. And our balance sheet looks much different than it did 24 to 48 hours ago.
We'll go next to Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet. Go ahead, Sean.
Hey, Kevin. I know you've been a big believer in your core for a long time now, and trying to, do something like what you've done over the last couple of days to make sure that you're setting them up to succeed as best they can. Do you feel that I know you've got some tinkering that you need to do, but do you feel with all the cost certainty you're talking about with contracts that you've set this team up in a position now where they can best show what they can do as far as, going out and trying to win a championship in the next couple of years?
Well, I think, again, we kind of hit the boxes that we needed to hit with these trades, and talking to to the guys that that are on the team here over the last 24 to 48 hours, there's a level of excitement that is in their voices and is in their thinking that we haven't had since maybe that the 2018-19 year type thing. I think once when we had to go through the Buff situation, I think it took a hit on a lot of the players because they knew our team dynamic changed when you lose a player like that. But the level of excitement and the level of anticipation of the season, with these two guys added to our core, I had guys telling me that like they're excited to go train, they're excited to for the season and that. So I think that they believe, and certainly I believe in them.
Go back to Sean Reynolds for a follow-up. Go ahead, Sean.
Just switching gears here a little bit. You talked about the meeting that you'd had with Nate Schmidt that you'd really enjoyed. I'm guessing he was the buzzsaw of positivity that we experienced earlier on today. I'm wondering what does a guy like Nate Schmidt, whose energy I don't know that I've seen very much in sports, what does that energy have the capability to do in a dressing room?
You know what? It's something that it's going to be real hard to measure because, when we've had conversations and Paul had conversations with prior coaches, when it started to become pretty real that we might have a chance to get Nate, all the coaches talked about how great he is in the room. Like, he's that guy that fires guys up. He's that guy that, he's kind of one of those glue guys that, that gets everybody going, gets the team ready to go. And then, you get that in his personality when you do talk to him. Like, that's real. Like, that's how he plays. That's how he is. That's how he approaches the game. That's how he approaches life. And that's an infectious thing. Like, those things rub off on all around. Sometimes you get in a dressing room setting and it's too quiet. And sometimes, players are hard to, maybe they're too serious. And you need a guy like that to add that element. So, again, it's an element that, Buff kind of brought a little bit in that regard, like he was the jokester and the guy that could take it lightly sometimes and still be serious. And I think, that's going to really be, help the dynamic of our room. And then on Brenden Dillon, from all accounts, this guy is a throwback when it comes to what he brings and what he can do for your room and your psyche about how to go out and play. I think that when you have a guy like that, I think all your team plays maybe an inch or two taller.
We'll go back to Ken Wiebe from Sportsnet. Go ahead, Weaver.
Kevin, when it comes to the backup goalie situation, why was it important to commit to Eric Comrie rather than kind of see how the musical chairs element would unfold today?
Well, Eric's earned his time, and his time has come. This player has worked hard. He's gone through the trials and tribulations of being a top end American Hockey League goaltender and trying to push past some of the veteran people that that were in front of him. He's a great partner for Helly. There's a real strong chemistry between the two. Helly, had a good say in this, as well from a standpoint of who he felt comfortable, having, as his backup. While Wade Flaherty, was real comfortable that, Combs is the guy that can take that next step, and so again, it's one of the players that earned the opportunity to be there.
And final question to Mike McIntyre from the Free Press. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, Kevin, just on that note, a day like today, you see some faces move on, of course, and I just wanted to maybe Tucker Pullman more than any, because he's a guy that you drafted and developed and put a lot of time in. Is it a mixed emotion kind of day when you see a guy, get another opportunity and a nice new contract with some security?
Yeah, for sure. That one does, touch home because, you drafted him and went through the development process, but he's just such a good person too, and the hard parts about making the deals that we did is, you knew that there was going to have to be change, but just so happy for him, and I'll give him a call, later today. Just so happy for the deal that he earned, and the opportunity that's in front of him. We certainly wish him all the best, and same with Louis. Like there's an opportunity for him there in Calgary, and that's something that again he was a good soul, good player for us. Came in and did a great job, and so did. Nate Thompson as well, who obviously is going in a different direction. So change is never easy. They were great guys that helped us, to get to where we were last year. But the players, that we have now, I think can take us one step or more further.